After months of waiting, we finally get to see the performance of Sony's entry into the hero shooter genre with Concord, developed by Firewalk Studios. The closed beta is out for everyone that pre-ordered the game, and we can now say with absolute certainty that it happened. Which is shocking, because it laser focused on the modern audience, with all the boxes checked. Pronouns, modern writing, ugly characters, hell, even a character based off of the founder of Sweet Baby Inc. And while we are coming up to the open beta, my first thoughts were to quantify the metrics we have access to so we can make some predictions of Concord. And unless the launch really takes off, which doesn't look promising at the moment, this game may be dead on arrival. Hey gang, I've been in the games industry for a long time, and one of the most important skills that you can have as someone that works in the industry is being able to analyze a company and figure out if that is a company that's going to last for a while, or if layoffs are inevitable in its near future. In my younger years, I managed to work at 4 different game companies over the course of 2 years. The more I keep looking at the metrics out of Concord, the more I think that this studio may be doomed. So what I'm going to do today is go over some napkin math on Concord to help determine how much these development costs were and how many units they need to sell just to break even as a game. Concord is joining a very crowded field of free-to-play hero shooters, but unlike their competition, they are not free-to-play as they have a $40 barrier to entry. And while the game will have microtransactions, that $40 entry point is a huge wall to scale in the current environment. So let's take a gander at some numbers to figure out how much the game would cost and how much it needs to sell just to break even. To start out with, at a box price of $39.99, Concord will pay $12 or 30% to Sony and Steam, and an additional $2 or 5% to Unreal per copy sold. This means that they are only getting roughly $25.99 per unit sold. It should be noted that they do sell physical copies of the game, but my understanding for physical sales is that the developer is looking to get maybe at best 50% of the price on the box. And we are going to go with a best case scenario for the developer when making our predictions here. And some of you may think, oh, but Sony owns Firewalk, so they won't have to pay that 30%. That's not how it goes. What will happen is that 30% still goes to Sony. It's kind of like, for example, Twitch uses AWS, which is owned by Amazon. They're both owned by Amazon, but Twitch still pays their AWS bill like a regular company. And that's how AWS is able to balance their books, basically, when dealing with internal companies at Amazon that use those services. This is how every company does it. It's not going to be an exception with Concord here. Next up, we're going to make some cost estimates. Firewalk Studios is based out of Bellevue, Washington, which is a high cost of living area. Judging from the careers page on their website, all the jobs are on site in Bellevue. So with this, we're going to go with an estimate of about $150,000 per employee. This is going to cover salary, benefits, hardware costs, software costs, and the ever expensive cost of office space, which is usually pretty astronomical. We know the studio opened in 2018, and I wasn't able to get a fixed number of employees when the studio started, but I was able to get the name of 3 founders. So for the purpose of our calculations, we're going to set the employee count of 2018 to 3. And I was able to find that in 2024, a couple places estimate Firewalk Studios to have 169 people or 170 people. And we're going to go with best case scenario in our calculations. So we're going to put it at 169. This averages out to about 27 hires per year until hitting 169 employees in 2024. The chart here shows the yearly cost estimates from 2018 to 2024. Keep in mind that the calculations are for a full year, and we're only a little over halfway through 2024. And this estimate has 169 employees for all of 2024. But with this, we have a total estimated cost of development at $88,800,000. Now, how many units do we need to sell to break even? If we are just trying to recoup the costs for 2024, we are going to need to sell 975,243 units. But if we want to pay for the entire estimated development costs for Concord from 2018 to 2024, we are going to need to sell more than triple that at 3,416,238 units sold. All of this math is going to assume 0 microtransactions because we don't have any visibility into how many sales they are able to get with their microtransactions. So we are not going to add that into any of these calculations. Now, the next question we have is, aside from announcements from the studio itself, how do we figure out how many units they are selling? And with that, we're going to take some insights from Helldivers 2, another game out of Sony with a $40 box price with microtransactions. Helldivers 2 reported 1 million sales on the 4th day of being a live game, when they had 155,000 concurrent players on Steam. Now, this number is a bit deflated because if you would remember the early days of Helldivers 2, there were a lot of server issues when the game first came out. So a lot of people that had bought the game couldn't actually play it. But for our math, we are going to use 155,000 as the baseline for 1 million in sales. Sony also let us know that after 12 weeks, they sold 12 million units. So during that time, they had about 450,000 concurrent users that played the game. So what we are going to do is we are going to estimate that 155,000 concurrent users on Steam is 1 million sales. And 455,000 concurrent users on Steam equals 12 million sales. This means that about every 26,000 concurrent users over 155,000, we're just going to call an extra 1 million in sales. So with these numbers, we can make our final estimates. Concord will break even for 2024 if they hit 155,000 concurrent users on Steam. And it will break even from all development costs if they are able to hit 208,000 concurrent users on Steam. Now, all of these calculations are just there to make a rough estimate for both development costs and help gauge sales numbers so that we can have numbers to look out for as we go and check on the measurements for Concord ourselves as individuals. And none of this makes any account for marketing. There's some estimates that have the Helldivers 2 marketing anywhere from $4 to $10 million. However, because Sony's the publisher, I am operating under the assumption that the publisher is going to eat the cost of the marketing bill. I may be incorrect in that assumption, but I am unfamiliar with the publishing deals that Sony makes with their developers and how they go about attributing those marketing costs. So we're going to go off of best case scenario, Sony pays the bill. So with all that said, I would estimate that the numbers that we've gone over here are probably pretty accurate from a rough estimates perspective on the costs and the kind of numbers they need to hit to break even on Concord. As of recording, we are heading into the open beta weekend. So I would encourage anyone that's interested to take a look at the concurrent users on Steam to get an idea of how many users are playing it over that time. Keep in mind that people will be playing in an open beta that will not convert to paid users down the line. So we will see, like, it's not a one-to-one get an idea of how many people are going to buy the game, but we will see general interest of people that could potentially be converted into paying users down the line. I'm going to share a copy of the spreadsheet that I use to run the math in the description. If you're interested in it, you can make a copy of it, plug in your own numbers, and you can also use this kind of approach when looking at other games to figure out the cost of those studios. Keep in mind, if you are going to run calculations off of something where the studio builds multiple games, you can't use the total employee count of the company. You're going to have to figure out the team sizes and how many years they've been developed to generate these kinds of estimates. And they're all pretty ballpark. It's not one-to-one. Those are the kinds of numbers that most companies will never release. And if they release numbers, it's not, this is exactly what we spent it on. They just give you a big number in the end. It's super helpful. I wish more people did it because it helps provide some visibility into the industry of building games at a larger scale, but people, they just really don't do it. It's unfortunate. If you think this stuff is interesting or helpful, or if it's wildly off base, feel free to leave a comment, like or dislike the video. As fun as it is to listen to all the endless drama on games, I really like to dive into the numbers side because I like to quantify the business side of things. Because for the business side, they don't care about anybody's feelings. They only care about the bottom line, how many units are being sold, how many microtransactions are getting pushed. And as long as the money's coming in, everything's good to them. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to subscribe for more games-related content in the future. And I thank you for your time and hope to see you in a future video. Farewell.